Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance, and I'm delighted to welcome you today to our webinar with SecurityScorecard. And we're talking about DORA compliance unveiled and managing the third-party risks. The challenge we're all seeing with DORA in terms of the marketplace is that a lot of people are looking at what they need to do, how they need to do it, etc. So we're hoping to be able to bring some good information to you today on how that can be handled. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dan Morgan, who's Senior Director for Government Relations at SecurityScorecard, and Zach Smith, also of SecurityScorecard. So what we're going to try to do today is to make the session as interactive as possible, because DORA is an area that we've certainly seen there's a lot of people have an interest in. They have an interest in understanding what it is, what it isn't, how they can operate it, how they can work within it and become DORA compliant, if you like. What we've seen also is a lot of people have different issues, challenges, and pain points. So we're going to make it as interactive as possible. We're going to try to do it in this sort of a Q&A way. But what I would say is, if just in terms of the housekeeping for the session today, if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, please raise them. Please put them into the general Q&A or send them directly to myself. We'll make this, as I say, as interactive as possible. Hopefully we'll give you a few minutes of your time back at the end, but we want you to get everything out of this that you want. So please work away, work through it. The attendees are muted for the moment, but we will, as I say, it's available to anybody to join and to raise questions. The session will be recorded, or is being recorded. Unfortunately, there are a few people who would like to attend the session who are unable to attend the live session, so it'll be made available as an on-demand session, and indeed it'll be made available to everybody here as well who's attending if they want to pick up any points as well as an on-demand session. So pushing along, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Dan Morgan, who is going to take it from here. Go through the security scorecard proposition, and then we're sort of going to make it as interactive as possible in terms of Q&A and going through the various points in terms of DORA. So without any further ado, I'll pass you on to Dan, who's going to take you into what security scorecard is, what it isn't, how they operate, and tell you a bit about their organization and take it from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me? For some reason, I can't get my camera back on. I don't know if anyone else can do that when I start, because I'm presenting the slides.
We can hear you fine. Yeah, they probably all want to get rid of my camera.
I'll start anyway if you can put that on, but I can't seem to get it. But yeah, for those that don't know about SecurityScorecard, we're a ratings, response, and resilience company. We help you know the cyber risk of any company worldwide, including your own. We can help you strengthen your cyber defenses with remediation plans, identify risk posed with all suppliers as well. I think the one thing to really take away from it is that we pioneered the market in cyber risk ratings. So just like you have a credit score for financial risk, we measure the cyber resilience of companies, entities, anything worldwide for cyber risk. And today we're going to talk about DORA and how our platform and more broadly risk ratings can support you in compliance with DORA as well. So how does our platform work? Well, our platform uses open source public threat feeds and non-intrusive data collection methods to generate the cyber risk rating, the score, if you will. We do this by continuously scanning the internet with a global network of sensors, which looks at every IP on the internet, looking for over 100 different risk signals. So this is anything from DNS health, IP reputation, whether you've updated your patches on time, your patching cadence, whether you have an out-of-date operating system, but it's everything that's front of the network. There's nothing is intrusive about that to generate this score. At the moment, we're scanning about 13 million entities at any one time. We then give you a score. Anyone can go and view this from A to F or 1 to 100, and that's really one of the founding principles of our company. Our CEO, Alexander Yapinski, said that cybersecurity lacked credible and understandable KPIs from his time as a CISO in blue chip companies. And so this was an attempt to try and solve that issue, to try and translate the language of the CISO into the language of the boardroom. We've been going about 10 years. We launched in 2013, and our data shows that those with a C grade or below are over 7 times more likely to suffer a data breach than those with a higher score. So there's some statistical relevance to cyber risk ratings as well. In terms of use cases, I think they're going to be relevant for today. Enterprise risk management, so self-monitoring. This is both through the score and other tools as well. It can help you monitor your own tech stack, which will support things like Article 9 under DORA. Key use case, obviously, is third-party risk management, which we'll talk a lot about today, which help you continuously monitor your business ecosystem and all your third-party connections. Clearly, regulatory compliance is now a big use case. We have a lot of conversations on DORA and NIS2 in Europe, but other compliance motions as well. We're used by regulators themselves, so to not just to comply, but to enforce and oversee, particularly in the United States, regulators like the New York Department for Financial Services, the CFPB. We're actively working with a number of European CCERTs and competent authorities to monitor key infrastructure, and we're engaged a lot with financial regulators as well. Other use cases for your background include things like cyber insurance for underwriting and pricing in cyber risk, board reporting, as well as key things like M&A or any counterparty you wanted to do due diligence on from a cyber perspective. So I'll pause there. That's a quick overview of who we are, what we do, and what we pioneered. And I'll hand over to Michael to kick off with some of the questions. That's okay.
Yeah, I guess it's a key question that comes up all of the time, and we are genuinely seeing a huge amount of interest in the area of DORA, and I think it's reflected by there's a lot of organisations looking to attend this webinar, if you like. And again, let's make it interactive. So throw me in the questions. But a key question is what is DORA and who does it apply to? I guess that's one that people start with.
Yeah, sure. Good place to start right at the beginning. Well, DORA stands for Digital Operational Resilience Act. It's been discussed for a long time now. First, mooted as part of the digital finance package. And it's really, some background to it, driven by the increase in tech outsourcing in financial services, and that risk now is not just within the financial entity, but is outside of your own domain, and it's not just a conduct or a prudential risk. It's now a technology risk as well, and really is an attempt to get a firmer grip on that with financial regulators, and it makes sense. All businesses, not just financial businesses, are moving to the cloud, and your daily interactions will be through SaaS applications like Slack or Zoom or Teams or whatever it may be. We have some data that shows most entities have over 500 third-party connections which own critical information about you, which you might not know about yourself. And in particular, obviously, with financial services, we see how systemic this can be. I think we saw earlier this year the CFTC postpone their commitments of traders report due to a cyber attack on ironclad derivatives, and that impacted a 1 trillion market in open interest rate futures. So, that's the thinking that regulators are looking to try and get a grip on this risk, which is outside of their usual purview. It's also not completely new. It's looking to harmonize and expand on some of the level 1, level 2 regulations that are already out there, and guidance mainly at member state level, who's looking to bring a lot of them together and sort of be more comprehensive as well. So yeah, I think that's what it is. I think in terms of who it applies to, I think a short answer is who doesn't it apply to? It applies to mainly everybody in financial services, whether it's banks, credit institutions, fund managers, and clause brings in critical entities to to direct oversight, but obviously it's also proportional. So don't try and boil the ocean. You know, if you're a major critical entity, you'll have the full stack. But if you're not, then it will be less onerous. And so, you know, understanding that will also be key.
Well, that, I suppose, just on that third party element, if you like, and the service providers in there, does that sort of include, that'll include technology providers, all of the technology providers into these organizations, depending on how important they are, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's that. There's some financial entities which would not be deemed, you know, critical, but you know would still have to be directly regulated by the NCA for DORA. There's some critical technology providers which will be directly overseen, more or less, and will have, you know, a lot more onerous requirements. But also, I think to bear in mind, everyone through the supply chain, the ecosystem, will have more pressure put on them, because what regulators want is, through a financial institution's responsibility and legal right now to manage your third-party risks, they're going to be indirectly regulating a lot of providers, if you will. Although if you're a tech provider, you may not be reporting to the Central Bank of Ireland, you may have a lot more requirements and responsibilities to provide services to the bank or insurer.
Okay, so very good. So it's a quite encompassing. And what are its requirements then? What's it saying?
So we can see on the slide here the 5 key pillars, which are, you know, that make up DORA. A lot of them are self-explanatory. ICT risk management, which is basically monitoring your own ICT systems and assets. A lot of the stuff in there, it doesn't look too similar from principles around NIST, but you know, Article 9 here is going to place a responsibility on monitoring your own tech stack. And again, that's something we can support. Incident reporting as a very specified classification methodology in terms of number of users affected, duration, geographic spread. All that stuff will have to be brought together in pretty quick time, and that's set out. Again, we can support on that. Digital operational testing really highlights the proportionality part of this between, you know, very large critical entities are going to be subject to large threat-led penetration type tests with the regulator, and smaller enterprises on an annual basis on some of your systems. So it really depends on your size on how that impacts you. Third-party risk, again, is key, which we'll talk a lot about today. I think really to draw out Article 25, entities are fully liable at all times for the ICT third parties that they use. So monitoring and keeping track of that is also going to be key. And then the final one's around information sharing, which we'll probably talk a little less about, but again is key.
I guess, you know, everybody's thrilled and delighted to see more regulations and more compliance and more stuff being driven, just to make sure that your day won't be boring. But I guess the question is and I guess that is regularly asked is, then why was it created? You know, do we need this? Do we need more?
Yeah, I think that's the story around, you know, the risk that we see now and the rise of fintech and cloud and everything else that we are experiencing, and the number of third parties that on average you're connected to, and your daily you know, your daily functioning is reliant on them. We've spoken recently to banking as a service providers who, for that line between third party and critical provider, and these things are blurred and very distributed. And so, you know, it's an attempt to get a hold of that. And there's a slide later on, which we'll talk on, which shows some of the gaps between what's today and what is going to be there. And they're looking to fill them gaps and try and get a view on that risk. So look, it's not for me to say whether it's needed or not, but it's definitely coming in.
Yeah, it's optional. Just do it. But you know, and I guess then, you know, following on that, you know, how is DORA different to current rules and regulatory guidelines, and I guess, yeah, your slide here probably covers that.
Yeah, I think those on the call that are regulated by the CBI perhaps will be used to a view on operational resilience from the CBI. You had the notes in 21 on cross-industry guidance on outsourcing, on operational resilience as well, the CEO letter on to e-money and payments providers on operational resilience. So, it builds on some of that, but goes further with legal responsibilities on a lot of it for the management team, more detailed requirements on critical third parties and access on that, which really builds on above the EBA outsourcing guidelines. So I think it's more onerous. The next slide points to, I stole this from a presentation I was at last week with ESMA that talked about DORA, and the green there is where level 1, level 2 legislation exists in member states for operational resilience and measurements around cyber, including some guidance as well. And the red is where we're going to get to when DORA comes in. So there's a land grab. There's a lot more. It's a lot more comprehensive. There's a lot more legal certainty around it and outsourcing guidelines. So there is going to be a job to get there, and I think that's why there's been so much interest in the right tools and the right plan to ensure compliance.
And when you mentioned that task and that job to get there, there isn't very far away, is it? At this stage, what steps should people be taking at this stage to get ready for DORA? There is imminent.
So it's due to come in January 2025, but I think there's the mood music and the guidance from NCAs is very much, let's get this sorted sooner rather than later. I picked out these two because I found that the most recent, there was a circular from the Dutch National Bank and also one from the Maltese Financial Services Authority, but I think there are others as well that I've been sort of monitoring in the background, and they're already calling for to start preparing now. In one of the things in the circular was carrying out a gap analysis between what went before in terms of policies, procedures, plans, systems, tools, etc., and what is going to be needed after. And I think we saw that chart with the red and the green, that's going to be mapped out, and some NCAs are expecting you to be making a plan towards that already, and that includes a formal compliance plan. It will also mean talking about costs and compliance budgets as well that have been talked about and alluded to in the circular. So I think you can't go too far wrong with doing what the regulators are asking for already, and thinking about getting ready in advance of January 25 and having a plan to get there. And I think joining webinars like this and thinking about the right tools you might need to comply and is going to be a good way of starting to do that.
I love when you say being ready for January 2025 or maybe a bit sooner. Personally, I don't think January 2025 is very far away. How would you see people in terms of their progression at this stage? Is there catching up to do generally, do you think, in where people need to be?
It's hard to tell, really. I think some of the larger financial institutions have started to make serious investments in this. We can understand that from some of the conversations we're having. Budgets are now definitely focused on this. I mean, just on the conversations that we have, and you can see, there's been a lot of discussion on DORA for a long time in Brussels and the policy level, and it's now moving into the operational side. And I think that is, we're seeing a lot of activity now. So this is, I don't have any sort of hard data on these investments, but from what I can tell, there's a lot of interest in the business side of it now, in terms of what do we do, and that's evident in conversations like this. It's compliance teams reaching out saying, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with you guys now. So it's moving away from your Brussels conversation of back and forth, of maybe arguing this is an overreach or whatever, into well, this is coming in. And obviously we had the ESA consultations on the regulatory technical standard, which ran last year, and we'll start to see more and more details, being fine-tuned on that, which will, again, we'll have to respond to and be ready for them. And they will all come out and be clear in January from January 24 and July 24. We'll see what they are, and we'll start to get the fine details in what this actually means on the ground.
Because time moves by. If 2024 is anything like as fast as 2023, it'll catch up very quickly. I guess there's this question here that gets raised regularly. I guess, what are the most significant challenges to compliance?
Yeah, so I think we had a look at this in terms of, so for us, DORA is a big one that a lot of customers came to us. It was a pain point. So the great thing about working at Scorecard is we have a lot of data. We're scanning millions of entities. We can see vendor detection, so who vendors are and the data breaches they may have had. So we conducted some research on financial services in the EU. I think we looked at the top 300 financial institutions and looked at their third and fourth parties, and that aggregated out to about 26,000 domains. And we looked for data breaches as well as other things within the score, things like network security, but ultimately on the data breach side, to try and get a picture of what the risk would be and where it would be. So we looked at different types of financial services, and we point to here is banks, and some of the data, 20% have a C grade or below, which is interesting, as we know that that's 7 times more likely to suffer a data breach. But 20% maybe, when you're thinking about tail, is not too bad. I think the real story here might be that 82% of retail banks surveyed and looked at in the research suffered a third-party breach, but only 8% suffered a breach within their own domain. So what that means is that we're moving from a world of cyber risk, where there's a big cyber risk is outside of their own domain. They have lots of third parties, they're all in the cloud, and the risk is now not in their own domain, it's outside of it. But that's moving from a operational cyber risk to a regulatory one. As you know now, with the requirements on DORA, you're responsible for these third parties and monitoring them. And so, getting a grip of that is going to be, I think, the biggest challenge. And it was very similar with insurers, where we had 24% were, C grade or below. And interestingly, they may not qualify for their own cyber insurance based on some of the proxies they use. But regardless of that, I think the story is, again, 78% suffered a third-party breach and 0 in their own domain. So I think risk really is in the tail, and I think why we're getting such a lot of interest in people speaking to us is that managing that third-party risk in real time, thinking about how do we report on them to the NCA, how do we demonstrate that we're attempting to do that, given the fact this is where the risk is going to be. It's where why the whole concept of DORA. So for me and for us, I think definitely the biggest one would be your Article 25 is managing financial entities, is a key area of our discussion, and probably the biggest one. But the other two as well, which really focus minds in a discussion, is monitoring your own tech stack, which I think is important for continuous basis. But Article 5, in terms of the management team, bears full responsibility for this. So, we're talking about outsourcing guidelines, but we're moving to a world where the management team is on the hook, and you can see where the risk is, as we've saw from our own research. So for us, they're the biggest areas that we have a discussion on.
I guess it's sort of frightening to think that a lot of insurers wouldn't qualify for their own cyber insurance. Interesting statistic.
Indeed.
But the one that jumps out massively is the whole third-party risk area. And to be honest with you, from a Renaissance point of view, in terms of what we see in the Irish market, we see that generally, because I guess no organization operates as a silo on their own. They rely on others all of the time. And is that something that you as an organization, let's say SecurityScorecard, have seen the growth in terms of people looking to obviously third-party risk management is a key part of, well, it's a core part of what you do. How have you seen that marketplace grow and develop?
Yeah, I think it continues to be an important part of what we do, and the rules that are coming in, like DORA and NIST to some extent, in terms of having an understanding of third parties, is a key it's the key flagship for us to have a discussion on how we can help support compliance here. We have the TPRM solution, which helps you manage and give a view of your third-party ecosystem. But we also have a comprehensive set of products which can help you in some of the other key pillars as well. So it is important, and it's usually the first conversation. But once we have that conversation, you think, well, actually, there are other parts of the platform which can support DORA. So again, Articles 9 and managing your own tech stack. Again, that could be an enterprise risk management solution. You can have a broader view, maybe ratings and attack surface intelligence could support. With incident reporting, you need to respond to regulators in quick time. So we can collect, analyze, and preserve evidence of events and incidents. Again, we can respond in the methodology that's been provided for the number of users, etc., which can all be broken down. So I think that's key as well to draw out as well. You can set parameters for things in terms of your third parties, your concentration risk. You can set a portfolio for your critical providers, again, which is set out in how you monitor and report on them. So it's monitoring, but it's also reporting as well. So your own tech stack and third parties are almost like one thing, and how do we report on that? And we've got a good story to tell in doing it. Of course, I haven't mentioned it as much today, but we have a service team offering as well that could support in things like tabletop exercises and red teaming, depending on what your requirement would be under that. So again, that would fall under more on the services side. But there's a good story to tell, and I think the third party piece is what I just spent a lot of time talking about, because I see that's where the risk is, and that's where a big gap is in terms of people's compliance and understanding. But once you have a conversation, it opens up to, well, how else can we support? And it actually turns out quite a lot of areas that are helpful in monitoring and managing DORA.
Just and I know I jumped on from it there earlier, because you did mention in the previous slide, but what are the consequences of non-compliance? Obviously, that these things have teeth at the end of the day. DORA has key teeth.
Yeah, there is a financial penalty. I think it's 5% or 10 million euros, if I remember rightly, in terms of for non-compliance. So it has a financial and implication for the business. It also places legal responsibility to the management team. So those designated individuals within there could also have a personal liability for some of these things as well. So something to really bear in mind to get that right. And I think finally, unlike a lot of other cyber regulations where you're working with your CISO, a National Competent Authority, this is now managed by the NCA, by your financial regulator, and that relationship's different. It's a day-to-day. It's for other areas around conduct or prudential requirements, and so I think it will be monitored and enforced in a way different to how it is in other areas of cybersecurity, and that makes maintaining that relationship even more important. And one of the reasons why I think we've had a lot of interest more quickly for DORA than NIS2 to some extent, because they're used to compliance and the pressure, and the relationship is different. So I think they're the three things I draw out in terms of not complying, is that maintain the relationship. The management team needs to get on board because they have a legal responsibility, but also, of course, there is the fines as well, which could be impactful. But there's a lot before we get there as well, I think.
Okay, and I'm sorry, on this, you mentioned the whole interaction and looking at the organization and your third-party supply chain. One thing that I forgot to mention is that everybody who's attending on this session, it's available to them to get a free 1-hour session with the Security Scorecard expert to talk through the types of challenges and issues that are related to that to their organization. And indeed, those who will be seeing this as an on-demand session as well later on would have that is well available to them. So just come back to the Renaissance or to the Security Scorecard team, and that can be organised. That's something I forgot to mention. But just in terms again of I suppose questions, that people talk to, is this just for enterprise size companies, or what sort of organizations, what sort of size or scale of organizations does this all relate to?
In terms of our customers, or in terms of DORA?
In terms of Security Scorecard and the types of services that you provide out there typically.
Yeah, so we service customers of all sizes, right, from the largest financial institutions and FTSE and Fortune companies, right down to tiny SMEs, and also government departments and others as well. So there isn't any real barrier to using these services. In fact, it's a very cost-effective way of starting to understand your cyber posture. Particularly on the scorecard side, before you build on to maybe other services as well, and understanding that. And DORA impacts everybody. You all have to have a view and to manage that one way or another. So I think there's no size limit in terms of having a conversation with us. I noticed that Zach, one of my team members, is on the call as well, who he works very close with our customers in Ireland as well. I don't know, Zach, whether you wanted to just step in and say a few words about the type of customers that we support.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. Listen, just I guess to give some credibility and validity to our presence in the Irish market, we've probably been there for about 6 years now. So since about 2017, 2018, and to echo Dan's point, we have customers of all different sizes, public sector, private sector, a wide array of industries and verticals. So, we've got some real strong user cases that we can share with you in one-to-one discussions, just to show you the kind of challenges that other customers were faced with. And to make it more relevant to today, we've got proactive conversations underway in Ireland around DORA, working very closely with Michael and the team at Renaissance. So, yeah, just to give you people on the call a sense of validation. We've been around for a while. We're growing at a strong rate, not just in Ireland but globally. And I think we see a big opportunity in Ireland. And that's why we partnered with Renaissance earlier this year to help us grow and to help show the value that we can bring to Ireland and to the customers based over there. So we've got a team of people through Renaissance. We actually have, I think, 1 or 2 individuals that reside in Ireland that work for Security Scorecard. And then the likes of myself and Dan and other people in the UK are not too far away. So, a short flight into Dublin. So, we're flexible. We're happy to help and discuss any projects that customers may have aligned to DORA. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for us, and hopefully that kind of gives you a sense of how we see things and our credibility in the marketplace.
And just to echo that, I guess from a Renaissance perspective, we've seen a huge amount of interest in this area in terms of Security Scorecard, and right throughout the stack of clients that our partner customers, if you like, would be dealing with. So it's probably very relevant. It's very interesting, even if you look at this from a small organization point of view, to look at what it tells you about an organization and the types of issues and things that it raises in terms of whether it be DORA related compliance or just generally compliance in terms of third-party risk management and everything associated with that is definitely for sure. And there was a question here about the DORA having a footprint in the Irish marketplace, and I think you've addressed a lot of that, Zach, and that is definitely, we're seeing a massive interest in this, and it's not just driven by the DORA and this too indeed is another regulation coming down, all coming down the line, but they have similar sort of demands and similar sort of requirements. And the question that a lot of people have asked as well is, how can they get a free trial, or what are next steps from that point of view? There is a free trial available, but there is also, as I said, there is that consultation available with the Security Scorecard expert, and that's something that we can set up. So please, come back to us if you like, if with any questions or comments in relation to that. are there any other thoughts, Dan, Zach, that you might have in terms of where security scorecard and compliance and DORA, from a point of view of this specific conversation, but generally in terms of compliance, the types of benefits that you've seen, the quick wins that people have had even?
Yeah, just to reiterate the offer then of sitting down with anyone who might be interested in having a discussion on compliance and running through the different tools. I'm on the government relations side, and I speak to regulators on a regular basis, and we represent that view then to our customers. But we have a lot of the technical specialists who would also sit down and then start to look at your vendors. In real time, you'd see, who am I connected to? And sometimes people don't even know, you have direct relationships, but then indirect relationships. And, you can see some of the risks in real time, look at where from a sectoral basis or the concentration is over here. And it really illuminates, you can see, look, these are the requirements here. And this is how we can help you. We can set aside here critical providers. And I think just spending some time on them demos is one that really brings the platform to life. And, if you're thinking about, well, I've got, a few things here on DORA, which I need to, work with our CISO and our compliance team, then having them session is really useful. So I just encourage, anyone to get in touch. In terms of quick wins, I can just see an uptick in demand for our services in terms of what we've seen. Like, there's more demand to have a better view, because risk is outside of your own domain. We've seen that with the data, with number of connections, with our own research, and that's where the regulatory risk is. So the key trend I'm seeing is just an increase in demand for the right tools to at least have a view and show compliance to the regulator. So I'd encourage to get in touch. We can demonstrate the platform. You can see where you could add value and tweak around with it and tailor it to your own demands and tailor it to the demands of DORA. And then I think you'd understand a little bit more about, where the value is.
Yeah, just a couple of points from me. I always like to kind of relate it to real life examples. So we invested in attending the likes of Gartner, InfoSec and ISF as key kind of industry events this year. And personally, and feedback from the team is that, this area of DORA and compliance and third-party risk management is so high up on the priority list of end users. They were approaching us directly saying, listen, guys, we need some help. We don't really know where to start. We've got thousands of suppliers. How can you help work with us? Can you work with us to help put a plan in place to make sure that we kind of are more proactive in terms of when it comes to really looking at their supply chain and third-party risk management? So it's real, and customers of different shapes and sizes have been coming up to us at those events, and we've really, taken those conversations. And yes, for transparency, in some cases it's resulted in some deals for us. But the important point to take away is that the customers, once they have a demonstration of the platform, once they have a session with us on a one-to-one basis, once they take out our freemium account, so that enables you to have a play around with the platform, just to familiarize yourself with it, to see the value that it could potentially bring, not just to your organization, but also outside of that in terms of your supply chain. I think that's when, we really start to see momentum, and, that's when the customers really start to see the value that we can bring to them. So it's real, it's happening now. And I look after probably 20 tier 1 partners across my territory, in UK, Ireland, Belgium, Holland, and Nordics. And honestly, every other conversation is around DORA or supply chain management. So, we're here, we're happy to help, and clearly working with the likes of Dan and the team at Renaissance. If you want to take those conversations further and make it more relevant to you, then let's have a conversation. We're more than happy to help and work with you on that.
And just one point, people might be thinking, well, it might be a good tool, but what do regulators think about it? And so, as I say, regulators, competent authorities, cyber competent authorities as well, actively use this tool to monitor and manage their entities within their countries. We have CSERTs in Europe looking for using from a NIST perspective critical infrastructure and using this tool. We have financial regulators in the state of New York monitoring 30,000 financial institutions. They were the first to go with a cyber regulation where they spotted a particular vulnerability, then bank examiners would go in further to examine that. So it's used by authorities already. We had conversations throughout DORA and the ESAs on how risk ratings could be formed as part of the technical standards. I don't think they will be, but they have a very good understanding around how these scores work and how we could feed into reporting as well. So I think understanding of how regulators are aware and view this as well and actively use them provides some comfort when you're thinking about making investments for compliance.
Yes, I think that the message there is DORA is alive and well and coming to a cinema near you in January 2025, which to be honest with you is not very far away, because we're talking about that C word at the moment. So we'll January 2024 is only around the corner. But I think that the lesson that I think the suggestion there, to be honest with you, is that it is seeing is believing, and trying it is very, very beneficial. And certainly from what we've seen from a Renaissance perspective, those who have tried it and looked at it have been quite very interested in the information that they can give them. It's very interesting of the information it gives you on your organization, as well as the people that you're working with, whether they be clients or suppliers or whatever it may be, and all of those are very interesting. So the data that's coming out of this is fascinating. I mean, the extent and breadth and depth of the engines that SecurityScorecard have in terms of the amount of activities, and I know that Dan put that slide up early on in terms of what it's trawling and what it's scanning is phenomenal. So I would suggest everybody should at least download a trial, have a play with it. We will, as a follow-up to this, we'll send you all a link to that for that. And if you wish to come back and have a follow-up to that, to anybody attending this session, whether it be online now or whether it be looking at this in the on-demand session, if they come back to us and look for we can arrange for a session with the Security Scorecard expert to talk through what this can do for yourselves. But I think that I would suggest have a look at it, have a play, and see what it can do for you. And I think you'd all be very, very pleased. But I think, to be honest with you, unless there's any other questions there, the questions that are in the moment, Dan or Zach, if you have any other quick comments to make, and then we'll give people time for a quick coffee before they go back to their next session.
No, just a huge thank you for inviting us on today. We're really happy to partner, and any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate people taking time out their busy diary. I'm sure it's year end for some of you on the call, as it is for us. But yeah, I think that the key takeaway I'd like you to think about is our credibility in the market. The amount of conversations that we're having, what we're seeing in the market, the message that's coming back to us, and more importantly, it's very much not a one size fits all kind of solution or offering that we have. Whatever the complexity of organizations and their compliance challenges, issues, constraints, whatever it may be, we've got enough experience and enough user cases to be able to make it unique to each and every organization. So speak to Michael or the team at Renaissance or us directly, and yeah, we'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. But yeah, big thanks from me, and hopefully we can speak to you soon.
Thank you all, and listen, appreciate it, and good luck with DORA. That sounds weird, but it's not far away. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.